Welcome to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. I'm Zach Kaufman here with Ryan D'Amico.
What's up? What's going on, man? Another week, another breakdown, another podcast. We just keep on rolling along here like we've been all season so far, and it's been fun. And football is getting. We're right in the heart of it too. I mean, we're right into the heart of football. So this is really when this show and these podcasts really get enjoyable.
Yeah, a lot of teams have hit that point where they've just played their 8th game. They're exactly halfway through the season. We got a good feel for what we're doing at this point, and we're getting a little clearer picture on things like playoffs in both college and the pros as we move forward here, and it's getting exciting. We kind of have a feel for teams, who's good, who's struggling, that kind of thing. So it's exciting to watch. It's exciting to see what's coming up here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll kind of get it. We'll get it started off here like we always do with our college week breakdown. We're going to take a look back at week 9 in the college football season. We'll take a look ahead. We'll take a look at some of the top games from this past weekend, and then we'll take a look at, as we speak, or actually it just wrapped up a couple minutes ago. College football playoff rankings came out. So, the AP poll and the coaches poll, we're not paying attention to those rankings anymore. We're paying attention to the college football playoff rankings, and a little bit of a surprise, I think, maybe to some people with those rankings, and we'll get into those here in a second. But first, you have to look back, Zach, at a game that you and I kind of caught the tail end together. We had a little get-together on Saturday night, and we watched the end of this game at that get-together. Penn State, Ohio State, a game that just absolutely lived up to the hype, and it was good to see because there are a lot of the marquee games this year, and I was actually having the conversation with a friend of mine, someone one of my good friends, Jeff, and we both kind of were discussing how a lot of the marquee games this year haven't been very good. So it was nice that this game actually lived up to the hype. Ohio State storms back, wins 39-38. Penn State at one point in this game was up 28-10, and let's Ohio State come all the way back. They're up 35-20 then at one point going into the fourth quarter, and then the fourth quarter is just dominated by Ohio State. They outscored Penn State 21-3, and a comeback that I wasn't sure they had in them just because everything was kind of going Penn State's way. And Barkley had a great game as usual. He took the opening kickoff back to the house, and some things just weren't going the Buckeyes' way. But look, JT Barrett kind of put him on his back and had kind of a Heisman moment, if you will. And they score with about 2 minutes left. I thought that was too much time. I thought for sure Penn State would go down, and all they needed to do was get into the field goal range. And with that high-octane offense, you didn't think that'd be a problem. But a couple things Penn State did that was really discouraging. One, they played that patented prevent defense that defensive coordinators, for whatever reason, Zach, I will never, ever understand it. I don't know whether they just get nervous, they get scared, they get timid. I don't know what it is. But up big late in that game, they played prevent defense. And then Barkley doesn't touch the ball at all on the last drive of the game, which is obviously a huge problem there. Why don't you touch on those 2 points I just made? What's your opinion with the prevent defense, and then how do you not get the ball into Barkley's hands there?
See, both of those things fall into the same category for me, where I've seen this all the time. I'm more – basketball is my biggest sport, playing and coaching it, and I see it all the time where a team, they get a good lead – and then they get out of what they do well. They start stalling with the ball. They start wasting time. It's the same thing in football. They get away from what got them there, what got them that big lead, and that's when it slowly gets started to chip away. They get within striking distance, and then in this game specifically, they were able to pull ahead. And I see it all the time, and it's one of the most frustrating things to me. I just, as a coach, I don't understand that conservativeness, that they just kind of get set with the lead and they're okay with that, and they leave what got them there. It just blows my mind, and it's so frustrating to watch even at the highest levels when they go away from that. And we saw it with Saquon Barkley. They didn't even get him the ball towards the end of the game when they needed him the most.
I mean, there was one play, Zach. He actually stayed in to block at one point. It's like you have the Heisman front runner. He pretty much has it locked up at this point, barring just something crazy happening. And he's standing to block on one play. I'm thinking to myself, like Joe Moorhead, who was all week has been ever since that Michigan game, has been talking about he's definitely going to get a head coaching job. I mean, I'm watching that saying, what the hell is this guy doing? I mean, I just didn't understand it. And Penn State did themselves a huge disservice. And look, they dropped to 7-1. Ohio State goes to 7-1. Obviously, Ohio State holds the tiebreaker there because they have the head-to-head win now. So Ohio State kind of controls their own destiny there in the Big Ten. And Penn State scrounging and hoping for someone to slip up, and they got to keep on winning and winning impressively. So Ohio State, they come away with a big 1-point win at home and get a nice win there. Another game, and a surprise team that just keeps on improving week after week and just keeps knocking people off week after week. And that's the Iowa State Cyclones, a team we haven't talked about at all on this show. And I guess, Zach, it's time we probably discuss about them here pretty quickly. They take care of business at home against the 4th-ranked TCU Horned Frogs, a TCU team that has just been rolling. They knocked off Oklahoma State earlier in the year, and the defense has been fantastic. The defense only gave up 14 points in this game, Zach, but the offense could only muster up 7. They lose 14-7 in Iowa State. Look, and Iowa State, what's even crazier is this is with a backup quarterback, a third-string quarterback, really, who went to Oregon State originally, was basically let go because they said, look, you're just not good enough and you're not going to play here. Went to a community college, reached out to Iowa State coaching staff because he had a connection there and said, hey, can I come and play with you guys? They're like, hey, sorry, we don't have any scholarships. He's like, I don't care. I just want to play. I'll walk on. Ends up walking on. Now he's leading the Iowa State Cyclones to a win over the top. Beat Oklahoma earlier in the year. Now he beat TCU. If this Iowa State team can keep winning, Zach, I mean, maybe they're one of the – we see it every year. There's a Cinderella team every year. Maybe it's Iowa State. Maybe a little too early to start predicting that, but look, I mean, why not? I mean, they're playing really well right now.
Yeah, that's a team I haven't got to watch. I do remember you did bring up Iowa State at one point earlier because you talked about Baby Bash's song Cyclone.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we did bring them up. I'm sorry. Good call, man. I do remember that. That's right.
So at least one time they were brought up on this podcast.
When they beat, it had to be that game when they knocked off Oklahoma State for sure. That definitely was that game. So yeah, look, they're rolling and look. They're just going to keep climbing the rankings, and the college football playoff rankings just came out. They're ranked 15th, so it's right there for them. I mean, they keep going, and they can somehow win the Big 12. Who knows what can happen? A couple other just real quick side notes. Those are the two big ones I wanted to look at. Miami, they continue, like I say, week after week. They just sneak by and don't look very impressive at all. Wisconsin, the same thing. Another just easy opponent. They take on Illinois, only win by 2 touchdowns. Not impressed at all. And then Notre Dame, boy, the Irish just keep on rolling, man. I mean, this is an Irish team that's looking really dangerous, and they have a big clash with Miami in 2 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see that matchup. So yeah, hey, tip your hat to Notre Dame. They're a team that seems dangerous going forward. So lastly, Zach, we'll take a look at the college football rankings. Like I said, came out tonight, the Week 10 rankings, and we'll take a look at the top 6 spots. Obviously, the top 4, which is if the season ended today, these would be the 4 teams that would get into the college football playoff. Number 1, a little bit of surprise already at number 1, Georgia actually takes the spot from Alabama. Look, I think you look at Georgia, and they have a couple better wins than Alabama. Alabama really only has that one good win at Florida State, which, looking at that now, a 2-6 Florida State team, that win all of a sudden doesn't look that good. So Georgia takes the number 1 spot. Bama, they only slipped to number 2. Number 3 is actually the team we just talked about, Notre Dame. They jump to number 3 in the country. And look, big matchup in 2 weeks with Miami. That's kind of a make or break game there. Number 4, kind of surprising, but I don't know. I think eventually they're going to taper off. Clemson at number 4 to wrap that up. And then 5 and 6, the 2 on the outside looking in as of right now. Oklahoma at 5 and Ohio State with that big win over Penn State coming in at number 6. Obviously, Oklahoma ahead of Ohio State because they do have the head-to-head matchup earlier in the season. So that's where things stand now. Obviously, it's going to get crazier and crazier, man. I remember that there's been – when the initial rankings come out, all 4 teams have never stayed the same throughout the rest of the season, as it should be, as it's pretty difficult to do. So there's going to be a lot of twists and turns as we go down the stretch in the college football season.
And I'm curious, as someone who's not a big college football fan, I haven't watched consistently throughout my life. How do they come up with those rankings there for the playoffs heading into this?
So it's a lot of it's the same. It's based on like AP polls and the coaches polls that come out every week, but they have their own committee of, I forget the exact number of people. It's like 12, 14, somewhere around there, that basically get together in a room and they go through each team and they break them down. They go through their wins. They go through their losses. They go through strength of schedule, which I love, which is fantastic because tonight you see Miami and Wisconsin both drop significantly in this poll compared to the AP poll because their strength of schedule is so poor, because they haven't beaten anyone, because they're barely getting by teams. I love the fact that they drop those teams down because of that. So, it's basically just one big committee that gets together and goes through team by team and puts them in the order that they feel that they deserve. So, and they do this every week. Every week, a new ranking will come out. And then at the end of the year, they'll have their final one, and those are the final 4 that get in to the college football playoff.
Very interesting. Definitely reminds me of March Madness, I think of.
Oh, it is. It is. Ever since they went to this new format and they got rid of the BCS, it gets that kind of March Madness vibe. And I think as we go on in the years, I mean, this will probably, I would think, expand to 8. I can't foresee it going any bigger than that, but I definitely think 8 would be a good number, just because, like, when you get to 8, when you're at 4 right now, the 5th and 6th team in the country that get left out, like Ohio State and Oklahoma would be right now, those are 2 very good teams, that you would like to see either one of those teams get into college football playoff. It would just be good football to watch. You start getting down to like the 9th and 10th best team in the country, it does start to drop off a little bit. Like right now, if the season ended today, I could do without seeing Wisconsin and Miami in the college football playoff. Like, I wouldn't be in an uproar because they got left out. I really wouldn't. So I would really like to see this get to 8, and I think that would make for an even better, college football playoff.
Yeah, that would definitely make it interesting there. Do you think more people would be interested in watching it? In that case, I feel like for me, as kind of an outsider that hasn't consistently watched college football, that could be more intriguing if it's more of a setup like the NFL playoffs there, like you said, with 8 teams or even more than that.
Yeah, I think so. I think more people would probably be intrigued. I just believe that if you get past 8, like, I think if you get into 12 teams, 16 teams, I just think it gets a little bit watered down.
Yeah.
And when you're matching up the 16th team versus the number 1 team, like, that's just not a good matchup. I mean, that's just really not.
Especially in football, because it's so tough to do a quick turnaround.
Sure.
Like basketball, they can have 2 games in 3 days, or
right. And that's just going to have to extend the season. You're going to have to play 3 more games. Like, So a lot goes into it. I think 8 would be the good number. That's been my opinion the last couple years. And that's what I'll stick with. So I think 8 would be ideal, and I think ultimately they'll get to that. There's been a lot of rumblings over the last year or so. So if and when that happens, we'll see.
Thank you so much for listening to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. We really appreciate it. We've changed some things up based on some of the feedback we've received, so we'd love to continue hearing your feedback. As we continue to build this platform with our podcast, it's very helpful to us if you can share it with the people you know that you think would be interested. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a great week.